Hi, everyone, welcome. And welcome, Ondi Timoner. It's really good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. And I'm so excited to chat with you about Last Flight Home. So, everyone, my name is Melanie. I am the director of Bird's Eye View, and we're a charity with a mission for equity in all film spaces. And we run a project called Reclaim the Frame, which is about connecting audiences with films by women and non binary filmmakers across the UK and online. And we are super proud and really, really happy to be supporting Last Flight Home and to be with here with its director, Ondi. So yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you about this beautiful, beautiful film. Thank you for sharing it with us. Um, yeah, so I want to ask. First of all, just congratulations. It's like an incredibly profound film that is it's about finding dignity in death, but also in life. And it's about the importance of goodbyes and the power of like enduring love of family, and it's really moving, and it's a film that's got so much to say. Your father has so
Mhm.
much to say. So I mean, you're no stranger to making sort of cinematic portraits. You know, we've seen over the years the films that you've made about Robert Mapplethorpe, about Russell Brand, about Amanda Palmer, about Josh Harris.
Mhm.
These incredible kind of rock star entrepreneurs and artists. And in this latest film, you obviously turn the camera on your dad and on your family. It's an incredible story, but one no doubt really hard to tell. And I just want you to, yeah, start from the beginning and telling us what it was that compelled you to turn on the camera when you did.
So, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do with your program. In hearing you talk about equity and representation, I feel like it was unintended, but that the consequence of this film is really, hopefully, a piece that illuminates the need for elder rights, elder care, uh, and us to really turn and look at the end of our lives. It's something that we shy away from so much, and it wasn't necessarily a mission of mine. To answer your question, uh, I'd never been through anything like this. I was terrified when our father, who was the most tenacious, incredible person we ever knew, and was always going to be here and said he'd always be here, had survived a devastating stroke when I was 9.5. And it was the result of his neck being cracked in a massage. And he was at the height of his health, of his career. And everything kind of came tumbling down at that point. But dad stayed positive, stayed strong, rooted for all of us all the time. It was shocking to all of us when he suddenly said he needed to die. It was sudden because he was terminally ill, as most people are at 92. He
Mm.
had COPD, and we found out he had congestive heart failure as well. These are slow moving terminal illnesses. Who knows how long he would have hung on, but what was clear was after they resolved some breathing issues, he wasn't going to be able to go home again. And being with my mother and being near us was everything that he lived for. And so I think when he came to realize that he was going to go to a facility from the hospital in January 2021, he said, "That's it, I'm out." And for me, it was losing my best friend. It was losing the rock of our family, and I panicked. I had this really strong urge to film. I had always intended to tell Dad's story. You listed some of the characters that I've covered over my career. Even Robert Mapplethorpe, who Matt Smith, your countryman, portrays beautifully in Mapplethorpe. All of these characters are sort of they're real life subjects, but I call them impossible visionaries. They're people that sort of take on the impossible. And they have some kind of vision that we can't necessarily see at the time, but they pursue it doggedly. And they sometimes act impossibly along the way. And I think my father was one of those people, like he had a vision for an airline and he built this airline out of, from one prop jet to the fastest growing airline in the world. And by the time he had that stroke, he was 53. It was 10 years later, and it was poised to be the biggest airline in the world. It was flying to, 17 countries and 30 cities in America. And then he was sort of struck down, but nothing stopped him. And he had vision no matter what state he was in. And so I had written a script to kind of bring those years alive because I didn't have any archival footage. So I was never going to make a documentary. That was not even the intention when I thought I have to film. It was more like I just want to bottle him up somehow and not lose him forever, and I can't remember him from before the stroke. So I can't remember him able-bodied. So I was like, that's not going to happen again because I'm a professional documentary filmmaker. I have cameras and I can capture him for my whole family. And so it was really intended to be for the family. I asked Dad though, and he said, I instinctively know you're on the right track, which was a really, really interesting answer because I didn't know what track I was on necessarily when I felt that way. And I went to see a therapist because I was worried that maybe I was trying to mediate the experience or that I was going to hurt my family in the process. And I thought she'd say it's a terrible idea to film, but she said, if you feel like you should film, then you should do it. So yeah, so that was kind of how it started. But then what unfolded during those few weeks was so profound that it was the most transformative experience of my life for sure. And I think of most everyone who walked in that room left there changed because it was Dad's room. And Dad, as you said, had so much to say in so few words. He just opened his eyes, and when he opened his mouth, wisdom came out and comfort and love and peace. And it was just everyone left there with their feelings about the biggest issues of life and death, like kind of changed, So it felt wrong not to share it. When I started to look at the footage, my sister had asked me to make a memorial video. I don't know that I would have opened it had she not asked that. But when it was 2 weeks after Dad died, and I thought I'd sit down and cut together 5 minutes. That's what she wanted, 5-minute video. And I stood up a week later, and it was 32 minutes long because he was like alive inside the editing system. And it was just like looking at it, no longer needing to be the quarterback of his care. I could look at it with this objectivity. As a filmmaker, I thought this is extremely important to share.
Mm.
So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah. And thank you. And, thank you for capturing it because as you say, there was so much wisdom in your father, and to share that. And I guess I'm kind of interested in the point at which it went from being bottling him up, as you say, this kind of capturing your father for posterity, more for, yourself and kind of family reasons. And at what point you thought the world needs to see this, and also kind of what it is that you're finding that audiences are taking from the film, because there's your father's story, yes, but there's also this kind of dignity in dying message, this kind of broader kind of message around how do we around the kind of laws that you were having to face in order for your father to be able to take some control and some dignity in the way that he died.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you for asking about that. I didn't make the film with the intention of changing the law, though it only exists in 9 states in America, and it does not exist in your country. And it's something that is a basic human right. I didn't ever really think about it before my father pleaded with us to die. I think when he was asking, he didn't know about the law. We didn't know about the law. He was just saying, help me go, and a lot of people say that. I mean, now that our healthcare system is so good and effective at keeping us alive, there's a lot of people that are alive that would rather not be, and they're really in pain. And it's sort of the question of, do we have the right over our own bodies or not?
Mm.
You know, it's a question that's very much alive here in America with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But it falls under that category even more so in a way. It's just your body, you know, it's just your body. And can you stop your life or not? And if you're terminally ill, I believe, and our whole family very passionately believes, that it should be a right at this point. First of all, when he found out that there was this end of life option act in California and that he could take his life on a certain day, he said to me, "Would you rather get a call in the middle of the night, or would you rather know when I'm going to go?"
Mm.
And he lit up. I mean, his demeanor, his his state of being was like night and day once he knew that he could choose March 3rd and he could go on that day, and that we were going to get behind him and we were going to support him as a family in something that he really needed to do. And so I'm so grateful for that. And that was a gift. It was a gift also because I could clear my calendar and I could be there every second, and I could set up Zoom calls to say goodbye to friends, and people could come, and they knew that this was the chance to say goodbye to Dad. And to answer sort of why, you know, where did I notice that I should share it? Certainly in the edit of the memorial video, as I mentioned, but also noticing Dad's arc, noticing Dad from going, you know, from being this voice in the hospital to this sort of helpless elderly man that you see at the beginning of the film, to when he talks about, you know, 12 minutes in, what he wants to do to Donald Trump. You
Yeah.
kind of get a sense of like, oh, this might be a more fun ride than I anticipated. This man is actually quite something, bit of a firecracker, you know? And that's how he was. I mean, there was so much in those weeks that he was so funny, you know, and but it was really when my sister sat down with him to do sort of our final attempt at getting Dad to see that he gave us everything. Dad felt like a failure because he'd lost all his money. But Dad had provided us with this unconditional love that, you know, I think anyone and everyone, if people have had it watching the film, they're so happy to relive it in seeing their own lives on screen, as intimate films can do. The audience says they see their own family up there, you know, and if you've had unconditional love in your life from a parent, people say it's a very beautiful experience to relive that. If not, if you've had a horrible time, the irony is people say it helps to heal them to see that there's another way to go, that it could be possible to have a death like this, that it could be possible to have a family that comes together and has this much love in it. But Dad feeling like a failure was that was it gonna kill me. If he died feeling like a failure, I was not gonna make it anymore. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was having like a total breakdown about this. So I was working as hard as I could to show him and demonstrate to him that he provided us with everything. And so seeing his original employees, and, you know, our housekeeper, Carol, who loves him so dearly, and our au pair from Liverpool, Patty O'Kane, who's this incredible nurse, by the way, head of nurses in Liverpool. Hi, Patty. You know, visiting with all of them filled him up. But when my sister sat down and did the vidui, which is this Jewish deathbed confessional the day before he died, and I'm sitting there, and I jump in to try to make him feel better because he's calling himself dumb and a schmuck and all these things that it's really hard for me to hear. My sister says, "That's not the exercise," you know, and stops me. And I think in that moment, I realized that this is a profound learning moment, that you can't take people's shame away. And that this movie, that this experience that I was having that became a movie was as much about how to live as how to die, you know? And that dad's arc in the film, and in those weeks, was so massive, you know, till by the end, he was, you know, he says Biden won and so did I. Like, he comes to this incredible realization that he measured his life wrong and that he should measure it by love. And I think that's, to me, when that all happened, as that was happening, that was to me like, okay, this has to be shared, you know.
Yeah.
This is too important, because we go through our lives measuring our success by the money in the bank, or the, you know, fame we can attain, or the hits on Instagram, or whatever it is, you know. And it's very hard to come back to this understanding, or to even know that at the end of the day, all that really matters is how we are with those we love, and with those who love us, you know, and in our relationships. Or as dad says, respect those you don't know and love the ones you do. You know?
Yes. Yeah, that was some great advice that he gave there. And that is a beautiful scene when one that you refer to, when your sister Rabbi Rachel is the kind of confessional, and he says at the end of that he feels lighter, and there's a kind of lightness in him, isn't he, as he knows that he's about to pass to the other side the next day. I just want to say for everybody watching that if anybody wants to ask any questions, you pop them in the chat and they will come through to us. But while we are talking about your wider family, Ondi, I want to ask you about their role in their involvement in the film. Obviously, not just in the filming, they're part of it. What you're capturing is not just your dad's story, but your whole family story, and the kind of coming together. And I have to say, my favorite scene, the most beautiful scene, is for me was there's a point towards the end where you're kind of you're right where you need to be in supporting your dad, your father, and you're kind of holding him, and you're making sure that he is able to, for himself, take what he needs to take. And your sister reaches out and says, okay, you're holding your father, I'm going to hold you. And it's this kind of, this holding of each other through it. And I just wanted you to talk about, if you can, the kind of involvement of your family in the making of the film, from the point of which you stopped filming, and it becoming a film. Like, I know, for example, that your mother wrote the title treatment, and so just the kind of wider involvement of your family in the film.
Oh, it's been the greatest aspect of all of it. And I think the thing that, if anything, has dad smiling from above, it's how the family his beloved T team has come together around him in this film, right? It was beautiful to know and to feel the support of both of my siblings throughout this process, whether it was that strategy call that you see with Rachel, you know, where here I am, like, she's a rabbi in New York. She's a very, very, very big rabbi. Like, I mean, I don't know if a rabbi can be big, but she's, you know, she's got a lot of families she cares for, like 1,000 or something. And, you know, just to give you a sense of Rachel, she's becoming really rapidly one of the most important social, political, spiritual leaders in this country. She is, you know, New York Times just a couple days ago for speaking about the rash of anti-Semitism around the world, and you know, and is doing a project that I've been documenting for years, actually, with a Black Baptist church to try to ameliorate or even eradicate racism in Brooklyn. Really radical, wonderful. She has a huge long arrest record, you know, very busy. So she can't come out till like 5 days before dad's going to die. And so I'm there trying to make him realize again that that he's been this incredible presence in our lives and so many people's lives, and this like leader among leaders, the best. And my brother is coming every night after work and caring in every other way, and we're both kind of helping in every way. And then Rachel comes to town, and it's sort of like special forces have arrived, like, here's what I need. I've gotten this far. Mom is avoiding dad because mom doesn't realize that dad's going to be gone in a few days. She's in total denial. Dad really wants to spend time with mom, and dad also doesn't realize that he's as wonderful as he is. So we have some stuff, and she's just like, okay, all right, okay, great, got it, and I'm like, yes, the rabbi's here, and it is very helpful having a rabbi in the family. I'd never really appreciated it as much until now. We're not a very religious family, and we only go to temple to see Rachel if we're in a town that Rachel's in. She used to live here, so in LA, so we used to go every High Holy Day. But now we only go when we're, to hear her sermons, which are like, the spa. It's like going to the mental spa, the spiritual spa. So that was the support. It was like when my dad had the stroke, my mom called us the T team, and we really came together around dad, and it felt like that was happening again 40 years later, except that we all have these special skills now. I'm a filmmaker, she's a rabbi, David's an editor, and Elsa just a great provider and an adult now. He was like 7, 8 years old and really had a hard time with dad's stroke, as he says in the film. So it was a very different experience to be adults and and come together. But I think the stroke, as mom says, like sort of bonded us by fire, and so we know how to deal with crises. And the way to deal with crises is not to run and hide under your bed or start pointing fingers. It's to come together, and that is not apparently always the approach that families take, but that's what we had. So I was very, very grateful for that time. And as you said, in those last few minutes of dad's life, when taking this medicine became an obstacle course, and I left that in, I left the struggle in, because I think that as grateful as I am for the law, the process is different in every state. It's something that we just don't talk about, and therefore it needs to evolve. And so I knew that this being a film, it would be there for a long time, forever in the, out in the world, and that this conversation should happen around, there was, to give context to people who haven't seen the film, 3 drinks, and one slows the heart, one slows the lungs, and one then is the final drink, and it has to be taken in 2 minutes. And dad, by then, 92 years old, terminally ill, having taken drinks that slow down all of his vitals, found it impossible to hold the cup that we practiced with and take the medicine himself. So now I had to break the law, and my sister jumped in and said, you're not doing this alone. Like, we're going down together, and then my brother just put his hand on us. Yeah. And that's really perceptive and beautiful that that's your favorite moment, because it is really a moment that shows the mettle of the people that I'm blessed enough to be in a family with, and then overall, I think the filming was very hard for Rachel, especially, though I have been filming her for years. She's not a fan of cameras, really. She understands now, she says, the power of cameras, because the reaction to the film is so intense and unbelievable that we've never experienced anything like it. She never has as a rabbi. I never have as a filmmaker. And so now she's like, I think my job's gotten a lot easier in filming her in the future, but for this, she would not have preferred to have had this filmed at all. It was dad and mom that really wanted it. And so she said, well, that's more important. And she said that from that moment, she just forgot that the cameras were there, because what was happening was so important. Obviously, dad passing was the focus for all of us, so the cameras were really secondary. David and I founded Interloper Films together, my brother, so he was supportive. He's more laissez-faire about everything, and so he was just like, no problem. But then when it came to actually like making a film, first of all, the fact that the memorial video was 32 minutes long was not pleasing to Rachel. She and I actually had a rift over it. I didn't realize why. I didn't know that she was very upset by it, but she was upset because she had planned this memorial service and it became a film screening. But then people reacted to the film, the memorial video, with, you know, changed feelings about mortality and comforted by it. And so it turned out to be a very positive thing. But then, of course, she was not planning to have a feature film. No one was. I mean, mom's in rollers. My brother's like in the same shirt day after day. You know, I'm in like, forget about it. Like I had no idea myself, as you can see from the film. So she said, you know what? I sent it to her. She said, it's beautiful, but I'd really rather keep it private. And I just was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? At this point, I was obviously very invested in sharing it. And I called mom, as one does if they have a mom. And mom called Rachel and told Rachel that she'd been watching the film every day, every cut, every day, multiple times a day, as she did for the entire first year after dad died. In fact, when I called her last night, because I just got back to LA after a month, she was watching the film. She was halfway through the film, just wanting to visit with dad. And that was the first indication to Rachel of the profound healing nature of the film beyond the memorial video. Because the film is way more, you know, going through dad's death and everything. It's a way more intense experience than that memorial video was, as you can imagine. So, but she showed it to clergy, fellow clergy. She showed it to friends, and the reaction was unanimously like, Rachel, this is too important. So the night before the Sundance premiere, she wrote a letter, an article to the Forward, an open article you can read about why she was sharing this, because at that point also her career was on the line. I mean, it was a violation of Jewish law to help anyone die, as it is for most religions, which I think is why it's not a right in your country, for example. I think it's mostly a religious thing. And now she's putting together interfaith group of religious leaders to try to change that. She feels so strongly about it. She wants everyone in the world to see it. But she wrote this letter the night before explaining why. And now Reform Judaism has, in fact, changed its stance in the year, in this last year. So now it's no longer a violation of Jewish law. What?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible as a kind of legacy.
Well, we really want, I mean, we're ambitious, so we really we'd love the film. We didn't make it for that reason, but we would love the film. We couldn't take dad's suffering away for 40 years. Do you know what I mean? And we finally were able to help him at the end. But if this story can help so many others, like tens of thousands, hopefully hundreds of thousands of people, relieve their suffering and their families, you know, people have come up to us, you know, who've lost their parents to the most painful kinds of cancer, and they're begging their children to help, and they're powerless to help their parents legally, you know, and it's just, you know, if that can be a result, that would be great. But right now, dad's smiling because we've been to Telluride together as a family. We were just in Miami bringing him home to, you know, his airline came together and everyone came into the theater, and we opened, the film is on screen in Miami as we speak, you know, and mom was beaming, you know, and Rachel's there. We're all together in New York for the opening. And so it's just in LA, it's just been like a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think for dad, nothing was better than having his family together, and this film has done that. So it's kind of, in a way, I feel like it's dad's final gift to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's a film that's got so much capacity for healing, and yeah, it's so profound, and I'm so pleased that it's getting a release here in the UK. So it's going to cinemas across the UK from Friday, which is the 25th of November. And yeah, please, everyone, spread the word and support it. This incredible film, Last Flight Home.
I want to say one more thing, which I don't know how old you are, but the most surprising result for me has been young people. So in terms of the theatrical, like 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, grandkids who are losing their grandparents, and they don't know, they've never had anyone talk to them about death, you know? And the reaction has been so passionate among young people. They love it because the grandkids are there. You know, they're 20, they're 19, they're 20 years old, you know, they're 17, and they're just, it's just beautiful to see them with dad and what they get out of being with dad. So don't hold your kids back from seeing the film, but also from being with their loved ones before they die. You know, that would be my favorite message. Oh, there's some kind of message coming up.
Yeah, we're getting nice messages. I think they're through from Facebook. But yeah, Ondi, thank you so much for chatting with us about the film. Really happy to hear that you're filming your sister Rabbi Rachel project, because there is a film we want to see.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Fantastic.
Now she's putting up with me better than ever, thanks to dad. So. Anyway, thank you so much for having me, and to for all the response in the UK so far has been so incredible. I've been there twice now, and it's just amazing. You guys really get it, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching.
Take care.